I'm so proud of how our guys competed. There's no sign from, moral victories or anything like that. They don't have a column for it, but it just shows the level of competitors that we have in that locker room. To have the mindset that, no matter whether things are going good or going bad for you, our guys were prepared to, fight till the end. And, that's a very good positive that I've seen from this group throughout the season.
Good afternoon, everybody. That was Michigan coach Juwan Howard. He likes the compete level from his group. Thanks to mgoblue.com for the audio, and welcome in, everybody, on this Friday, January the 27th. It's good afternoon, Michigan football and basketball, as we're ready to take on a little football and basketball talk over the next hour. Always great to see the people get involved, whether it's feedback, calling in, whatever it's going to be. Talking about the latest in Michigan sports every day at 1 o'clock weekdays. I'm looking forward to Sunday in Championship Sunday. We got two fabulous games. It's you get to this time of the year, it's like any time, you get into a Final Four or championship game, the stakes keep getting bigger, and then afterwards you're like, whoa, man, now it's just the Super Bowl, and then you got to wait 2 weeks for that, and then football is done. You got to turn the page and find something else for your entertainment. And around here, talking about Southeast Michigan, you're talking basketball and hockey, and a little slim pickings over the past few years, and looking at what we have out here to deal with. But we deal with it anyways. Specifically what we're talking about, we will get to JJ McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, who's going to be a junior next year. And we'll talk about expectations for number 9 in the maize and blue, and just what you expect to see from JJ McCarthy. I've got a lot of thoughts. I put some stats up, and, I've ranked the returning quarterbacks across the country, and how I'll slot them in heading into next year, and we'll talk about JJ. Also, we'll give a tip of the cap to Billy Packer, the longtime college basketball announcer who passed away. We found out that news today, but we'll start talking a little college basketball with Purdue taking on Michigan last night at the Chrysler Center, and the Boilers stay perfect on the road in the conference, and they just got one loss all year long. They beat Michigan by 5 points, and that's where we begin talking about that game. And I'm on after every Michigan basketball game talking about the Wolverines, and then sometimes you wake up the next day and you feel a little bit different. I don't feel much different than I did last night. Michigan was there, played a good game of the first half for the majority of the first half, but then they had just a sequence of a few minutes, like they were in the game, it was tied, but then they had some cold shooting, and then they turned the ball over, and then they missed a golden opportunity when they had a 3-on-1, and Purdue came down and expanded the lead, got it up to 13 points. Looked like it was going to be a blowout. Michigan scored 7 points to make it manageable at the half, but that gap where they just weren't able to stay with Purdue, they were chasing that for the rest of the game. And, overall, if I'm giving an assessment to Michigan, and I am here, this team lacks firepower. They've got Hunter Dickinson. Dickinson played well last night. They did not have Juwan Howard, and he's their, second best player, blue chip player. They only have 2. Kobe Buffkin has showed promise, and he was pretty good last night. They have those 3, which aren't too shabby, but the rest, Doug McDaniel, freshman. I know there's other freshmen around the country. Heck, the kid, Fletcher Lawyer. He looked pretty good as a freshman from Purdue, but in most cases, when you're talking about freshman point guards, it takes a little time. Judge them so harshly, and Doug McDaniel, he's been all right. He shows some promise. Same thing with Terrace Reed Jr. He got in some foul trouble last night, picked up a I thought a cheap tech, but he's got a promising future. But right now, either of those guys you're talking about, playing heavy minutes and with McDaniel running the team, is he really somebody that's going to, put the team on his back? You know the answer to that. And then you just get to the rest of the squad. TW2, Terrence Williams II, my favorite player on this team, the guy I root for the most. He right in the first minute or two of the game, he puts his head down, puts the ball on the floor, goes to the goal, scores a layup, and you're like, that's what you want to see from TW2. And that was about it. He makes a play or two a game, and it's just too few and far between. He needs a lot more consistency. Cheddar, who, because we haven't seen him very much in the game, there have been some people that would be like, hey, why not shake up the lineup and put Cheddar in there? Okay. I don't know if they don't like his defense. I don't know if he has the wind to play extended minutes. I don't know if he just doesn't get it done in practice, but, he makes a shot or two here or there. But I don't think Cheddar, as a redshirt freshman, is, coming to the rescue for this team. Can he play a little bit better? Sure. Putting him in the starting lineup, I don't think that's the magic elixir. I don't think there's a magic elixir with this team. Sure, try him in front of Joey Baker, who did get to start with Juwan Howard out last night. And, Joey Baker as a transfer, it's not there. He'll make a shot here and there in games, as a set shooter. He poured in a couple late, they count in the scorebook, but you need a lot more. You're hoping for a lot more. You were hoping, I guess you still are hoping for a lot more from Joey Buckets, but that hasn't been here. Jace, he's been hurt. He'll make a play or two every, week or two. That sounds harsh, but that's accurate. And Isaiah Barnes, what we have seen from him is he's just not ready. He's a redshirt freshman. He's not ready. Maybe after another year, something will happen where he can turn it around. We've seen it, but we didn't see it last night. He looked like a fish out of water. And then Yo-Yo, the freshman, Yusuf Kayat, he's been banged up, but he's not ready to play in the Big Ten. He's not ready to contribute significant minutes to a good college basketball team. And I don't know, GG3, we haven't seen much of him. I'm guessing that if he could contribute anything, that they would give him an opportunity, and they don't. So maybe down the line, you don't rule anybody out. They're still there. It's not like you're rooting against anybody. It's just it's kind of the facts and where they're at. And that's a great thing about playing, some of us, probably all of us, that's in some degree, we wish that we could have been like college athletes and played, the big time with the bright lights and everything. You think, wow, that would be awesome. And it would be, being out there, playing major college basketball, dreams of playing in the tournament, all that kind of stuff. But the downside is when you're in a major program and things are going well, you're the criticisms, some of them can be over the board and harsh. There's no doubt about that. But that's not what I'm trying to do here today. And you could, if you were, I don't know, that kind of Michigan fan, it's like, just don't want to subject yourself to any negativity at all. Say, hey, you're being a little hard on the boys. And that's not my intent. I'm just looking at them and giving you my opinion. And that's my opinion on where everybody sits right now with the team. That's how I see it. Now, you want some positives? We'll get to JJ McCarthy coming up here in just a minute or two. I've got some positives for you. Michigan sits at 11-9. They've got one more game this month coming up Sunday in Happy Valley against Penn State. And then in February, they have 8 games, and they have 2 in March. Plus, they have the Big Ten tournament. So you always have a chance in college basketball, another chance to right the wrongs. Look at last year. There was people were pretty much counting Michigan out the whole way. And then at the end, they won a few ball games, got in and won 2 games. And last year, as things go, they passed. It was a good year for Michigan, all things considered last year. And for the majority of the season, it was not looking that way. So there's always a chance that way. So maybe this team could turn it around. I look at these remaining 12 games thinking that they have to go 8-4. And if they're able to do that, they get to 19 wins. That's not punching your ticket guaranteed in the tourney, but that's pretty close with my own bracketology. Depends who you win, where you win those games, all of that. But, 8-4 with the 12 games remaining. And I broke it down for you. The remaining 12 games. So when you talk about only being able to lose 4 games, they have to go to Wisconsin, to Rutgers, to Illinois, and to Indiana. And their next 2 games are on the road. And so you're talking about just only being able to lose 4 games. So I have them, this is how they're going to need to do it. They need to win all of their games remaining at home. That's against Ohio State. Doable. Nebraska, doable. Indiana, doable. Michigan State, doable. Whiskey, they can do that. So if they win all of those, they got to find some other W's. They can't lose all of their games. They can't win them all at home and lose them all on the road. They're not getting into the tournament. So I look to their next 2 road games, Penn State and Northwestern. Those are winnable games. Now, both Penn State and Northwestern are right on the bubble, like the 9th and 10th team of the Big Ten. If the NCAA's, if Selection Sunday was this Sunday, both of those teams would be like the last 4 in. But can Michigan go to Happy Valley? Can they go to Evanston and win? They can. Will they? That's up to you to decide. I'm putting a W next to them to try to get to 19 wins. And then I have a loss at Wisconsin. That's going to be on Valentine's Day. It's going to be the whole slap punch, all the things that's going on with Juwan Howard. It would be nice to be able to win that game. I have that as an L. I also have an L of going to one of the most difficult places to play in the Big Ten. If you're a college basketball fan, you know that. If you're not, you're like, Rutgers. It's a tough place to play. Michigan's probably not going to win that game. And then their last 2, you'd like to say, hey, they can split them. Or if their NCAA tournament life depended on it, maybe they could get a win at Illinois or at Indiana. And yeah, they went to Ohio State last year without Hunter Dickinson and won that game. So you can do it. That's the one thing about bracketology and the numbers and everything else. You can always do it. You can always find a way to get it done. We'll take some of the feedback here before we get to JJ McCarthy. Antoine leads us off, and he says that now that basketball season is over early, we can have football all day, all the time. Well, Andres is saying that the fact that Michigan was in the game was such a lack of fundamental play speaks volumes to their talent. This team leaves a lot to be desired. Account 22 is ready to get to football. Steven watched the first half. Undisciplined play. That's what cost us in the first half. And it's not getting much better when you're looking for people to weigh in on it on the basketball side. That's it. Get a couple wins and things look a little bit better to the people. I would say they know that. I know that. So go out there, win a few ball games, and people will start saying some different things to you. You want to know what's going on with the Michigan coaching search for real, recruiting with this weekend, all of that. Be in tune with Michigan in 2023. Join the Maize and Blue review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Don't get confused about people that are sent on wild goose chases and everything else when it comes down to Michigan. Put your trust in Josh Henschke. He is delivering the goods for you on the Maize and Blue review. So we'll see you over there and certainly on the posting board with what we're doing right now. It happens all day, every day, talking about the latest in Michigan sports. All right. So this is, I'm going to say, a fun topic. It is fun. It's JJ McCarthy. It's not a fun picture if you're just listening. It is a picture of McCarthy. You probably saw it at the Fiesta Bowl. After the game, you can see, if you look closely, the score 51-48, and McCarthy, what is he doing? He's not soaking it all in. He's observing the TCU celebration with the purple and white confetti flying up everywhere. This is a sad scene. There was a point this morning I was putting this up here. I said, it's January's over. The TCU hangover is over, right? And I was asking myself. And then I started thinking about that game more, and I was looking at the picture, and I'm thinking that hangover really is never going away. That is that picture is brutal for all the possibilities. JJ just looking it over, thinking about, man, what an opportunity, what a season, and what a golden opportunity, and it's over. That's what's going through his mind. Wow. Tough photo. Tough one to take. If you're JJ McCarthy, if you're somebody that's a loyal follower of the Maize and Blue. But can he use that as fuel in the offseason? Certainly. And just how good is JJ McCarthy? First-time starter, got in, started every game except that first one against Colorado State, but he played great in that game and then took it over for good in the Hawaii game. So then what would you expect in his junior season? Yesterday, this is why I started talking about this today. We'll probably talk about JJ McCarthy a few times before the season starts September the 3rd. And whatever that is, 7 months. Somebody said yesterday, well, McCarthy will be gone. What about 24, with Corum and Donovan Edwards gone? He just threw it out there. And JJ McCarthy could go pro next year. If McCarthy goes pro, Michigan is going to have a great year next year, I would think. Because if McCarthy's put it all together where he is considered a first-round draft pick, or a top 10 pick, and that, he's going to be, that means that he has just played, he's had a hell of a season. And then I would think if McCarthy has a hell of a season, Michigan has also had a hell of a season. So it's a possibility, and you want JJ McCarthy to have a great season because you want Michigan to have a great season. So if that happens and he goes pro, it is a possibility. No, it's not lost. I mean, he had a win for the ages against Ohio State, and, you would love to see him stay around for 2 years. Maybe that could happen. But some of the numbers, just when you think about him, if he plays like he did against Ohio State and not TCU, everything is going to be really good for Michigan football next year. You should feel pretty good about it. Michigan averaged over 40 points a game last year, specifically 40.4 points per game. That was the 6th best in the country and just behind Ohio State in the Big Ten. The offense, with the return of both of their NFL guards, with Cornelius Johnson coming back, with the emergence of Colston Loveland, this offense is stacked. I think that Michigan can average 40 points or more per game next year without being like, hey, Michigan's the greatest, everything's great, Michigan. Trying to be honest about it, like just giving it an honest assessment. And look, they've been fantastic the last 2 years. They went undefeated last year in the regular season. They were one of the best offenses and defenses last year in the country. And offensively, I don't know, you expected them to take a step back. I don't think, this isn't over the top, saying that, they could average 40 points a game like they did last year. Now, can JJ open it up a little bit more? 22 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, the TD to interception ratio. Heading, the 12-0 perfect regular season that Michigan had last year, JJ had only thrown 2 interceptions against Penn State and against Indiana. Then he threw one against Purdue in the Big Ten title game, and then he had 2 against TCU. But, man, he was really taking care of the ball. But I think what we all saw from JJ, that first game against Maryland in the Big Ten, that first half, it was like, whoa, he was running around a little bit like a chicken with his head cut off. But it slowed down, and he played well. And then just in the nick of time, getting it going for Ohio State. If he has got a downfield passing game, if he is hooking up with his wideouts down the field, if he's throwing bombs and they're taking the top off of defenses, the sky is the limit for this Michigan offense. Maybe they'll score 45 a game if he's dialing it up like he did against OSU. 64.6 completion percentage. Could he run the ball a little bit more? He could. I mean, you're like, maybe you don't want him to until they're the big games. Like, does he need to run it against East Carolina, UNLV, and BG? No. Rutgers, Nebraska, Michigan State? No. Those are going to be easy games. Penn State, Ohio State, maybe he wants to run it a little bit more. 5 TDs, 70 attempts. I think he gets to the second half of the season. I think you might see him running the ball a little bit more, taking off. He should have done that a little bit more against TCU. He's so good at it. Maybe he will start running the ball earlier. Some of the numbers that I was just looking at overnight, one was quarterback efficiency. If you look on big10.org, the best quarterback in the country and the number one quarterback efficiency number in the Big Ten and in the country was CJ Stroud, who's gone. He's going to be in the pros, probably picked number 2 in the draft, but number 2 in the Big Ten in quarterback efficiency, JJ McCarthy, only behind Stroud. And Stroud led the nation in pass efficiency, the statistic. That's a good sign when you're looking at JJ overall and where he's at. So what does it mean? As I take a look at it, I put some quarterbacks. I'll give you my top 5. I listed off a bunch of what I thought were the top returning QBs. And if you look at the early Heisman odds, you'd say, wow, McCarthy's not even in the top 20. You're talking about him being, you think he's going to be one of the top 5 returners? Spoiler, I do. I think that when they're looking at the Heisman numbers, they think that Michigan's going to run the ball a lot with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. And I understand, Heisman odds doesn't mean best quarterback or best returning quarterback. So I'll give you my overall thoughts on McCarthy next year. I do want to take some feedback, and I want to see where the people are at with McCarthy. Account 22 expects JJ to be in New York next December. Well, there it is. It's just talking about the Heisman, and account 22 is expecting him to be there anyways. Sugar Shane got his sunglasses on. He's going to be happy for JJ, whatever he decides after next year. Great young man, but most happy with the 70% plus, 3,500 plus, 30 TDs plus less than 6 picks. 3-0 against Ohio State in a national title game. Yeah, Shane, if it's talking about what could be a 3 years, and certainly with JJ at the controls for 2 years, beating Ohio State back to back, and then in this will be a three in a row type situation, and the game's in Ann Arbor this year. I expect Michigan to beat Ohio State again this year. So do you, Shane. Should Michigan fans expect to beat Ohio State this year? Quick answer, yes. And those numbers, all of that Sugar Shane is putting down, 70%, a little bit high in the completion percentage, but like I said, he's 64%. He could bump that up a little bit, bump the downfield passing or the overall passing game, 30 TDs, doable, less than 6 picks. I want that number even a little bit smaller than that. Running the ball against the Buckeyes and then getting to the title game. Yeah. It's where you feel good. You want to feel good about the weekend. You want to feel good about yourself. Think about JJ McCarthy. Think about Michigan football's prospects for next year. And I know, there's a lot of other. Usually, it hasn't been like this. This is your reminder. Like in years past, the off seasons were real grinders and real disappointments. Even some of it wasn't half bad, but those losses to Ohio State and the whole thing, and you had to listen to everybody piling on. It was tough. That's why there was a couple points last year, and everybody does this. You work in radio, you do a podcast. At some point, whether it's going to be fans or the host, they'll say, "Oh man, I can't wait to Michigan football. Let's count it down 100 days," and then you'll get close to August, and they're going to be like, "Man, this off season has gone so slowly." Last year, to me, it did not go slowly. It was each and every day. I did a show each and every day. It would come on here, and it was like a reminder, like, this is way different. Talking about the team and the prospects and how they look, and after beating Ohio State, it's like, the sun is shining. Everything's going really well. You feel good. And that is back now. And if you could feel double that way, if you're feeling great, it is, because every time, like, you could say, like last year, it's like, well, finally, and I saw some Ohio State fans say that, well, finally, you won against us. No, once in 100 years, you should probably feel good, but Ohio State can't say anything now. Michigan slammed them right in the face in their own house, kept them out of the end zone in the second half. What a beating the Buckeyes took. And yeah, Michigan's going for 3 in a row. It's amazing. And JJ's at the controls there. So, and that's it. Couple more here. Jason pointing out that former Michigan offensive coordinator Josh Gattis is out in Miami a year after winning the Broyles Award. Think Jim will talk with him, Dennis? No, I don't. He burned a bridge with Michigan. It should be an example, not just for Josh himself. I think Michigan fans are a little bit harsh, but I understand it. It's why you don't want to burn bridges when you're working somewhere. You might want to say, "Oh, those dirty, rotten MF." No, he shouldn't have said that. He should have said, "I enjoyed my time up at Ann Arbor and I'm just moving on." That's not what he did. He talked bad about Michigan. There's 0% chance that Josh Gattis is coming back to Michigan. And if I was somewhere and you saw how he departed in Ann Arbor, I'd be like, we really want to bring this guy in? Who knows what he's doing off the field? We know what he did off the field in Ann Arbor, but then we saw the sour grapes when he left. Josh Gattis got some remorse, I'm sure. JJ McCarthy will be a first-rounder next season. Need to give him some better wide receivers. Yeah, Scott, I think that's fair, and I think a lot of people say that. I like Michigan's wide receivers. Like, I like Cornelius Johnson. I like Roman Wilson. I like Colston Loveland. There's the big three for you. Who am I missing? Do I think Henning could be there? Do I think the trio of freshmen this year, we saw some glimpses. Darius Clemens, do I think that he could step up big time? Tyler Morris, who had the big third down catch against Illinois, do I think he could figure in? I do. We saw Amarian Walker, a little, here and there. JJ threw him a bomb at Rutgers down the left side, almost caught it, but one of those three, I think, will be a star. Does that sound like I'm, going overboard? One of Darius Clemens, Tyler Morris, or Amarian Walker will be a star with Michigan as a sophomore. I think Roman Wilson is underrated, and I think Cornelius Johnson can play better, and I think he's pretty good. I think when you catch a 69-yard touchdown and a 75-yarder against Ohio State, it gives you a lot of confidence. What do you think Kojo's coming back for? Like, no, let's just chill. He's trying to, improve his stock in the NFL. So I like where Michigan's wideouts are at, but I think a lot of people agree with Scott talking about, giving him more wideouts. And we got a few more, a lot of Gattis talk. Account 22 is feeling pretty good about Michigan averaging over 45 a game. Let's see. JP says, I really believe that JJ, Dono, etc., the juniors will come back after next season. Those young men have a ton of character, loyalty, and faith that is very hard to come by in young men these days. Well, another thing maybe that could be working in those guys' favor is how Michigan is working the NIL game, something that gets talked about an awful lot. We do know for sure that Michigan does not want to play the "we'll promise you some money up front" game, but the "come to Michigan and those who stay will be financially compensated." They are playing that game, and they can look to what Blake Corum and Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter and what they were able to do, those guys coming back and how they got hooked up. Yeah. And, character, loyalty, faith, and NIL money. Whatever Corum's getting, maybe, the one-armed bandit will be, will take that kind of windfall himself. Who knows? Can they afford, JJ McCarthy? Who knows? JJ, Josh Henschke, the publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, he says this a lot. I see him posting all the time. But when he says McCarthy, when he talks about McCarthy, he always says he thinks McCarthy is a different kind of dude. Like, he's a different mold. Now, look, I don't blame guys for taking money or anything else, but McCarthy seems like he could be the kind of guy who would say, you know what? He's probably already made $1 million or $2 million. No, I'll stay around for $4 or $5 million when he could. It sounds nuts. It all sounds nuts. But I'll say it again. JJ McCarthy might be like, let's say he's not a top 10 pick. Let's say, fringe first rounder. If you're a fringe first rounder, you can fall into the second round. But maybe he's thinking, I'll stay around for only, $4 million at Michigan, and I'll look to improve, and then I'll make 20 or 30 million. I mean, there's a chance at all of that. There's a chance at those kind of things. Some speculation. Dono's gone. He's already made the statement. Things change. It's a fluid situation about exactly how things go. But yeah, if I had to make my pick, I will be with you on that. Steven says we will have a better shot at a natty within 10 years, if not next season. So you're saying if Michigan next year will next year be Michigan's best chance to win a national championship in the next 10 years? My first thought is yes. Yes, because of the team that they have coming back and the quarterback that they have coming back. And, just on that, and then with the uncertainty with name, image, and likeness, like as much as I just said, Michigan's game is those who stay will be compensated. They may miss out on the top 100 players annually because they don't want to play the game that that everybody else is playing, that they can enforce. But Michigan is dying on the hill of, no, we'll break some other rules. We'll text you and we'll, film you and we'll put some analysts, but we will not illegally pay you to come here. We'll let those other schools that you can enforce and nobody cares about. We will not break that rule. We'll break a bunch of small ones, but not the big one. So that little piece to it makes me think that, yeah, next year, and that they have a proven quarterback, and those are hard to come by. You'd like to think that Michigan would get like Jaden Davis, and then they would get the next Jaden Davis, and then get the next JJ McCarthy, and this thing would just keep going and going and going, and they'll have all kinds of opportunities. But look, back in the 90s and early 2000s, I thought Michigan would have a lot of opportunities. When John Beilein got back to the Final Four again, I was thinking, man, Michigan basketball, this thing's just going to, who knows how long this could just keep going with John, and then it was over. It could go the other way, and a lot easier to go the other way. Let's see. I haven't seen this one in a while. Scott's talking about Mel Tucker. Yeah, I think Mel Tucker is coming to the realization that he is not beating Michigan anytime soon. Here's the superstar, Hadley. I said Hadley only shows up once a month, and then this is twice in a week. I mean, this is unbelievable. The great Hadley. Let's see what he has to say. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but it's only 31 weeks until Michigan football. And I agree. I see JJ and the Heisman running and in the city that never sleeps in December. I guess that's the Big Apple, the downtown athletic club. Yeah, it's not a Debbie Downer. I'm going to go back, Hadley. I like football. It's the greatest. But I like the other sports and the seasons and everything else. I can wait until September. My point is that it is really slow and painful, and it drags on when Michigan loses to Ohio State. I have had many examples that I've been able to live with in my life of just how it works when Michigan loses to Ohio State. And I'll add losing their bowl game. I know they did that last year or this year too, last year and this year, and Harbaugh's overall bowl record. But these last 2 years are different. I am able to, I haven't quite been able to spring back from the TCU loss, but last year after the Georgia loss, I'm like, look, Michigan made the college football playoff. That's the idea. It's going to be tough. Everything's good. I should be using that same thing against TCU, and maybe I'll be able to get past that. Hopefully you are past that. Maybe it'll take spring game next year, at some point. My whole point is that the offseason is great now. Like, part of being a football fan is being excited about the prospects of your team, and then looking back to the last year if you had a successful team and saying, oh man, wasn't that great? And then the anticipation of the upcoming season. And a lot of the years here in the 21st century, you'd look back and you'd be like, oh my gosh, that ended in such terrible fashion. And Ohio State, there's bitterness. There's not so much bitterness. Things are looking really good. It's like finding a patch of wild strawberries out there, and then you eat one, and that's like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. I don't know. I just said that. I'm reading a book, and it was just about some wild strawberries and how good they tasted. So that's where that came from. This is true. Here's a note. There's no truer statement has been put down on the feedback. And sometimes, it's just the plain truth and very simplicity wins. Steven says, damn, this season was so much fun until the very end. Yeah. Yeah, Steven. You're right. You're right. This is something we can have fun with all off season. This is going to be a consistent message from the coach who writes in, Michigan needs to draw up more than just go and fly routes. And according to the coach, that's what Michigan did against Ohio State. They put some double moves in finally, that they finally opened up the book. I don't really see it like that. I looked at that one at the Cornelius Johnson, like that 3rd and 9. JJ was just backing out there and he whipped it over there. Cornelius made a move. Boom! Took it to the house. The next one, what it looked like to me, so the one was a 69er, the next one was a 75-yarder. The next one, it looked like McCarthy just went back and threw it up down the field. Just threw it right down the field. And then Kojo was just standing down there. And he caught it. But I thought the best throw, and I don't know, maybe it was a double move. I don't think so, though, was in the second half when it looked like, Michigan got the lead, and it's like, oh, Michigan's probably just going to run the ball here, try to protect the first play. McCarthy just threw it down the field, and you know what it was? Cornelius Johnson was there, was going to hit him in stride, and the Buckeye defensive back had to tackle him for a 15-yard penalty. I thought that was his best throw, but I didn't see the all 22, and so I couldn't tell. I mean, maybe you're a coach, you're able to see by watching the TV copy some kind of double move or something. I just see a receiver standing down there. And so I don't know. You could be right. And I could be saying a lot of stuff that I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll concede that. And I know you've talked about those lack of route trees. You have said that. You have consistently said that, and you keep saying that. So that's it. And I think most people agree with you, Coach, not me. So it's not as easy as just going back there and just throwing it down the field. Although when I watch a lot of football, I see what Joe Burrow does. Joe Burrow just puts it on the receiver. Put it on him. Oh, we get some basketball talk here late. Sorry. Missed your window. It's okay. There's Andres, who's laughing out loud. He says, I can't get over how people complain about Michigan running too much, yet still scoring damn near a point a minute. I know, Andres. We want it all. I myself, as much as I liked, this last season and the season before and scoring over 40 points and all that, I feel like I do want to see more passing still. I'm pretty happy I'm really happy with the product. I would like for them to be able to do everything. Have that Ohio State game plan. And definitely, they had everything going. Like a fine-oiled machine, undefeated, except the downfield passing game, which happened in the nick of time against Ohio State when they needed it the most. Let's see them get that going from Jump Street. So there is a little bit of something like that. Bob says it was a good game to watch last night, even though we lost. I agree with that. I enjoyed watching, I thought Dickinson really came to play, and, he was matching the Glacier, Zach Edey. It's the one thing, even if the team's not doing well, even back when they weren't any good, you pretty much the whole season would be home games, would be pretty, drab, and it wasn't a lot of excitement. But then one of the teams in the Big Ten, whether it be Wisconsin, a lot of times it'd be Michigan State, they'd come in. Suddenly you'd get it, the place was packed. It was alive. There was energy. There were all of those things were present last night at the Chrysler Center, and that's what you want to see. Late night game in Ann Arbor, and Michigan, they tried to play their ass off, and for a lot of the first half they did play their ass off, and then in the end, they were in with a chance. It just didn't happen. Okay. Oh, I like questions. Here's one from Scott. Would I rather have Raiola or Jaden? I would want, and I know Raiola is rated higher. I want Jaden Davis. I think Michigan is the leader for Jaden Davis. I think that Jaden Davis is a little, I don't know, I say spooked, was a little bit unsure of how things were going with, Harbaugh and the contract and the NFL and all that. And, took a step back a little bit. And I know some of his comments have people worried. And I think Jaden Davis is coming to Michigan. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say 75%. I feel pretty good about that. And I think the relationship with Davis and the coaches, all along, he seems like he's a Michigan guy. So, yeah, Davis is my pick. He's the one. He's on the top of the list of players that I want to commit to Michigan. Quarterbacks for next year, you got the southpaw from Washington, the Indiana transfer, Michael Penix Jr., Drake May. Remember, his brother hit a big shot for Carolina to win a championship. He's there for the Tar Heels. The Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, despite, his fingernails in that game. Former Auburn quarterback, Bo Nix. Jordan Travis from Florida State. They got a really good running game, and, Travis is part of that as the QB here. Hartman was great at Wake Forest. He's going to Notre Dame. You get a lot of shine when you're a QB at Notre Dame. That hasn't changed in the 100 years that I've been watching college football. I'm a little higher on this guy than I think most people nationally. Jaden Daniels from LSU. I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the better QBs in the country next year. And with that, I put together a top 5. Top 5 quarterbacks for the 23 season. At number 5, I put Drake May there. At number 4, the aforementioned Daniels from LSU. I like him more than others. Penix Jr. can spin it as well as anybody. I knew it watching him at Indiana that this guy had it and that he would be a pro. I still think that. I like him as the 3rd best quarterback in the country. At number 2, I have JJ McCarthy from Michigan. The only quarterback that I would put ahead of McCarthy right now is Mr. Fingernails. Caleb Williams at USC. That's how I rank them heading into the 2023 season as QBs. We'll see how that ends up playing out. You're a college basketball fan and you're, over 40, certainly over 50. You will remember the great Billy Packer, who was on every big game for CBS along with Jim Nantz. Billy Packer passed away yesterday or early this morning, whatever it was. Packer was synonymous with college basketball in the NCAA tournament. I always, I can remember my friend in the Michigan, North Carolina game with Weber called the timeout. He was always, Billy Packer, oh my God, they have a timeout. And, so he was impersonating that the whole time. But I was always, it wasn't weird to me, but it was always surprising to me. Like with Billy Packer, I was, kind of a young guy. And Billy Packer would just be watching a game. And then he would pull out a reference from like, oh, Jim, this is shades of the 48 Holy Cross semifinal. Like, you're talking about games from 30, 40 years ago, and it's shades of the 48 Holy Cross semifinal? Jim, just like Bill Russell in the 56th West Quarters. Like, are you kidding me, Billy? And then over the last year or two, I sometimes feel like Billy Packer. When Michigan was making their trip to almost a Final Four in Juwan's second year out, saying things like, hey, this would be shades of, Michigan in 93 in the, so, that was like 30 years before people were like, listen, like, what's he talking about? Or, with Michigan playing Illinois that year, it's like, hey, this was just like an 89. 89? You're talking about, the 89 tournament? It just means you're older. You've been watching basketball for a long time, but I always appreciated that from Billy Packer. So rest in peace, the great Billy Packer. He loved himself some college basketball. Okay, speaking of college basketball, I'm looking forward to Sunday. You got the AFC and NFC championship game, NFC championship game first. But before that at noon, Michigan and Penn State. I'll be on this feed after the game on Sunday. And if you are not going to listen or watch the post game, that's unfortunate. But I'll see you here on Monday. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. Let's get that all 22, Antoine, so we can see the double moves from Kojo.